Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live. I have a 6 by 10-inch piece of semi-gloss cardstock that we've stamped our imagery on. And what I've done is I've cut out the kind of the mountain silhouette right up here. And then I've placed it on a piece of, I don't know, just some cheap light blue text weight paper. Okay, so I've adhered the white onto this. I've done some initial coloring on here to give, I don't know, to get establish my kind of color scheme and a little bit of the lighting scheme. And then what I've done is I've spray sealed this whole piece, and then another piece of vellum has been placed right over the top of that. So we're looking at 3 layers right here. And one of the things I did on this blue stock right here is I just took some white pigment ink with a cotton ball, and I put in these little wispy, I don't know, whatever, clouds or whatever, cirrus clouds, or I don't know, whatever they are, into the sky, a little bit of striations in there, just to give it some variation in there, rather than just having it straight blue, which you can do if you want to save a little bit of time, but I think that looks pretty good up there, just in terms of some sky. It didn't go on perfectly smooth, but when you put that vellum over the top of it, it really kind of obscures kind of any kind of rough, oh, I don't know, whatever, technique issues that might arise. Okay, so I didn't do a lot of coloring on this just because if you spend too much time coloring underneath the vellum's going to knock it down anyway because the vellum's translucent, so you don't want to spend too much time with that. I mean, you could, but it's, like I said, it's going to get covered up, so I'd rather just kind of get a preliminary amount done. And then what I can do is I can do a lot of refinements on top of the vellum, and when you do it on top of the vellum, what you see is, you know, what you're going to get, basically. So I know exactly how light or dark something's going to be, rather than spending all the time doing something and then just cover it up with the vellum and lose a lot of the, I don't know, maybe some of the nuances, I guess. And the vellum, too, also takes the colored pencils really beautifully. It's a, you know, a decent toothy surface here. Okay, so what I'm doing right here is I'm going on the top ridge of the mountains, which I usually do the bottom part because I have it top lit, but I'm going to have this kind of misty essence in here, so I'm having the base of them a little bit lighter. Up here it's a little bit different. It's going kind of light at the base of this tall peak, darker, and then light up top, because I do want some light to be shining on tops of those peaks up there. I don't know. If I were to do it again, it might come out, you know, completely different. I don't know. In other words, I can, you know, tone it from dark to light, bottom to top, you know, as well. Okay, so that was a little bit of blue. I'm going to change my color here to a little bit of a more of a grayish blue for this more distant mountain. These mountains right here were stamped out in black. The more distant one is stamped in a gray. Okay. Yeah, put some of that gray down here. This was looking a little bit too bluish, but I do want to give them, it might not be a different color scheme, but I want a little bit of a different a value scheme. I want these closer ones to look a little bit darker, just to create some separation between these mountains and this background peak. It's not Denali, but you know, Mount McKinley, but that's what it represents here for me in this piece. Tallest mountain in the U.S. Not in the lower 48, though. That one's Mount Whitney. Okay. So this vellum it's translucent, but it's reasonably, I don't know. Sometimes it's more see-through than I think it will be, just from the looks of it, the appearance of it. And that's because sometimes when you merge the vellum with whatever you're putting on top of, I think the more you kind of burnish it, the more transparent it becomes. It never becomes completely transparent. But I've been doing this thing with this, burnishing it down with like an old card like this, plastic card, and I think it gives me a better, it makes better contact than, certainly doing it by hand or with a brayer. All right, so developing the shadows on those mountains a little bit more, and some of the, in theory, there would be reflections down here, but I didn't draw those into the design, so I'm just putting a little bit of shading down here with tone. The reason why I didn't do shadows, by the way, is because I was able to do a lot more images on a plate, and I figured people can, just stamp some shadows or reflections down below using other trees just stamped upside down. So you got to do a little bit of drawing in like that. And also I'm going to have some foreground imagery right in here. Okay, so that is some gray and blue tones. Let's go in with a little bit more value here, a darker value. Let's go into black. I won't use like a hard application of this. I don't want it too dark, but just to get a little bit more kind of contrast, I guess. All right, there we go, like that. Base of the trees. So it's adding kind of a thicker line down and then transitioning to light. These are kind of distant shorelines right here, so I won't spend too much time on it. I don't want to really take the base of it darker than the imagery up top, though, so I need to be a little bit careful about that, because the objects wouldn't cast a darker shadow than the objects themselves. And maybe we'll get a little bit of variation up here. I'll just add I don't know, 5% gray tone in some of these deeper shadows, just to vary the top image just a touch. Okay. All right, so we have that right there. Hopefully that's creating a decent amount of depth. See, I want to create a little bit more separation between that and this. That's why this one's, quite a bit darker. I was looking at some photographs, looking up Denali, McKinley, and it was showing this other ridge in the foreground in a lot of the photographs. Or a ridge. Maybe not as craggy, peaky as this one, but yeah, something similar. Okay, so hello, Bonnie. Let's see. think that should do it there. Sometimes I forget my foreground imagery. So let's go in here a little bit. Hope you're well, Bonnie. Hope you had a nice week. Okay, like that. I did get a couple smudges in here on that preliminary foundation layer. But if anyone has seen that Sequoia Vellum piece that I just did, it's like you can get so sloppy on that first layer if you're going to put on, you know, a bunch of these other layers of imagery and media and whatever, colors and everything like that. The vellum just kind of covers up everything. Stomach bug all week. Oh no. I hope that you'll recover from that quickly. I always say that that's my least kind of favorite. Not that anyone's, you know, any kind of illness is, you know, liked, but the stomach one's the toughest one, I've always thought. I'm not talking about long-term, you know, health issues or something like that, but of the, you know, the whatever viral, bacterial types. Those ones are always tough because you can't eat, you know. Or sometimes eating is kind of painful, you know, just the stomach cramps and everything like that from that. But I hope you're better soon, for sure. Hope you're on the mend. Okay, let me get a little bit of preliminary. Preliminary, I don't know, what do you call this? Layout. Layout ideas. Okay, I think I'm going to put this up here. I want to put this moose in here. That's the thing. And I was wondering if I should just go with the smaller. I think the larger one's the way to go, but I need some space for it right in here. And I guess I can go with this smaller tree right up here. And then the larger tree would be right here. So it'd be kind of like this. Moose right here. I was thinking I put the small one on here too. But I think I want this large one right here. And then I usually put like a little kayak or something like that. But this is like, I don't know, what, in the spirit of my dad. So he wouldn't be out on a kayak. His idea of going to Alaska, I think, just any kind of fishing would be, he's happy with. But I think specifically with Alaska, his idea was you know, this notion of going after like those gigantic halibut. You're not doing kayak fishing for that. I don't know how many, it's like hundreds of pounds those halibut are. Okay, let's get in a little bit more tone in here. I guess when I stamp my imagery on here, it's going to be in Brilliance Black, just because it'll dry on here. So I think I need to get everything established on here before I do that Brilliance Black, because it's going to be really sloppy wet. And I probably don't want to have to do too much, too many finishing touches over that. Okay, so we'll add in a lot of the effects in here, and let's see, as I say that, I'm trying to think of what those might be. Let's add in our, I guess everything, basically. So paint pens, pigment ink, and I'm trying to think if there's anything else in here that I want to add, and in what color I'm not quite sure. Okay. Kind of a lime green right here. And we'll apply this to some of these trees and hopefully bring some of these trees to life. I might have made them a little bit too dark with my colored pencil applications. But the thing about that, I say too dark and as far as not having to lighten them up like I am now, but it's not really a big deal. I mean, sometimes if you have to kind of lighten things up, it would involve adding something over the top of something that's darker with something that's lighter. So when it comes to some of this paint pen work, kind of having to do that and lighten it up a little bit, sometimes it just makes your piece a little bit more textural than it would have been had you not made it too dark and then had to kind of compensate, you know, in an additional way, you know, meaning the paint pens here. So okay, so that was some lime green. Let me add in a little colored pencil in there too. Yeah, something like that. And it's a little bit kind of it's a little bit of a circular process. It's going a little bit dark, go a little bit lighter, go a little bit darker. You know, because I don't want these trees to look like they're, I don't know, like covered in like Christmas lights or something like that. Like green Christmas lights. Okay, so here's a little bit of extra texture here. This is a dark green, or I don't know, mid-tone green maybe. And let's go to white. So Bonnie, are you able to eat anything at all? When I think about that, it's like one of the things I learned from being a parent is, what is that? They call it the BRAT diet, the BRAT. It's like bananas, rice, plain rice. What was the A? What was the A stand? Did the A stand for apples or something like that, or applesauce? And the T stood for, I think. See, I haven't had to think about this for a long time. I think it was just like plain toast. It's probably, maybe something's changed now too. You know, how they changed kind of the recommended things. You know, I don't know. It seems every few years. All right, adding these to the trees. And then there are these little tree trunks on the design itself. So I'm going to go in. You probably can't see it, but there's little things like that. I'm just going to reiterate that. So if I can't see it somewhere, I'll just kind of add it in too, just because I really like the look of this little bit of contrast in here amidst those areas in there. It just kind of gives it a better foundation. And then you go back in and you can add in some additional touches in there like so. And then there's these little rocks down here in the shoreline, and I'm gonna add in some little highlights in there, and hopefully you can see these little touches like this on your screens. But these little areas like that, it really brings the piece to life, especially if there are no kind of lighter areas or objects within those spaces. Then you just kind of add it back in. And if you can't really see anything, then you can just put a couple little dots in there or something. There's these little rocks in there. Now I can't necessarily see them through that vellum very well, so I just kind of do a little bit of a addition in there. It's like a little scribble of a little like oval maybe, and it'll represent like the top of a rock being illuminated. So see it right in here. See how much more three-dimensional that looks just from putting in a few little dots. Down here in the water too, in that shadow area, you can really make, I think I'm scraping up some colored pencil wax into my paint pen tip here, so it's getting a little bit clogged up. So yeah, there we go. Just get it feeding again. There we go. And just see, by adding those little types of things in there, it wakes up the scene, and it says basically from a visual standpoint is that there's this light that's hitting that area in there, and it's not just kind of so darkened and kind of ill-defined or something like that. These little highlights are the things that really kind of define things. So you can see this pad right here, and there's these little highlights around on here. Any type of pen like this, you know, you can see that little highlight right there. Okay, so it's on really everything kind of around us. Even on a black area right here, you can see this highlight around the edge right there. So adding these little touches like that, see this ridge line right here? So I'm just going to add a little bit of a little defining edge like this. And, you know, it just kind of brings out that area a little bit more, and it looks a little bit more three-dimensional when you do that, okay? If you add too much, you can always just, you know, kind of wipe it off. This acrylic paint doesn't dry so fast that you know, you can't make your adjustments on there if you need to. Or if it completely dries, and if it's like, oh my god, that's like way too light, you can always just color with a colored pencil, that white with a colored pencil, or something like an alcohol pen. Drop it down. Yeah. It's a quiet chat, Bonnie. You can you talk about the further adventures with that bug. No, yeah, that's what I do too. I try to keep hydrated during that time. Knock on wood, I haven't had anything in a while, but yeah, it seemed like there was a span of years in there where, you know, I would be getting something like about once a year. I mean, it wouldn't last too long. I don't think I've ever had something for a full week. Some residual effects where it's still a little bit, you know, it's really kind of careful, but you know, about eating something like no like spicy foods. I miss flavor though when I'm in that kind of situation, because I like spicy foods a lot too. But yeah, sometimes in the past it's like I'm wondering if I'm ever going to be able to eat anything spicy again. All right, so adding in these little kind of touches on some of these ridge lines up here, it just kind of reintroduces the lightness of the white cardstock that was, that's absent after I colored it in a lot. But again, it's not just like, well, if you're adding that white in there, then maybe you shouldn't have colored it to begin with, then you wouldn't have to reclaim the white. It's not quite that. It's we're adding this coloring in, this highlighting and lighting, though we're introducing it in texture. So you're benefiting from the textural element of these additions. So it's not just like this big area of white or something like that. It's dots, or you can do little hatches, or you can do, if you know how to, if you're someone that draws, you can do cross hatching if you want to. When I'm doing these hatching kind of motions, I usually keep kind of that same direction going throughout. I don't do this and then go like this and then do hatching this way, usually. Okay. And it keeps it a little bit more, I don't know, kind of consistent, I guess, which, can be a kind of its own design element. All right, I think that is about what I want in there. Right in there. Hopefully that looks like 3 layers of depth. The one thing, if I stamp this layer down here, those are the rocky peaks, and the tall peak, those things look good together if they're just all stamped in black. But this one's lighter, so I think it looks like 3 layers of depth. This from there, that could be, I don't know, this could be 5 miles away from this, at the base of this one or something like that. But if they're really close, it could even be the same system and part of that entire whatever peak system. This is like the base of it, and that's the top. But from here to there, there could be several miles in between when you do it lighter like that. Okay, let's add in some white pigment ink into the mix. I'm wondering, the thing area down here, I'm wondering if it was if it's too light or if I need to get in some variation in there. Something says I probably should, so I should probably do some additional, maybe colored pencil work down there. Let's go in with some white pigment ink. I did this same size 6x10 piece of, I call it sequoias, the vellum sequoias, I think. And that base layer was so bad because I stamped out my base layer in pigment ink. So when I started coloring it, it was like a big sloppy mess. I mean, I should have stamped all my imagery in dye-based ink and not the pigment. But I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was thinking I might get maybe a darker impression with the pigment ink, but it just even heats it. It just kind of smeared everywhere. But you just slap the vellum over the top of it, add all these layers on there, and it's like, I don't even think it would have mattered if I did a better coloring job underneath the vellum, I'm saying. So the vellum can really, the vellum is very forgiving of at least the way that I use it. It's a really forgiving technique as far as, taking care of those base layer images or applications. Everything was just smearing all over the place. But I was determined to, I don't know, make it work because I didn't want to have to stamp that entire lower section again. All right, so additional pigment ink in here. So we have pigment ink behind the mountain in the form of these little, wisps like that. We have the imagery in here, and then we have the pigment ink on here. So this pigment ink, the imagery in here is kind of like it's enveloped in this type of ink in the background, in the back, and over the front. So you're, like I said, you're kind of enveloping the imagery in that, whatever, like lighting or atmosphere. That. Okay. And let's do this right here. Let's come into, do I do this now? Okay, I was thinking about, see this color up here? It's really different than down here. So I think that this color, these two colors right here, might get this area down here a little bit more, kind of in tune with that top part. Not that it has to, but I think a little bit of it at least would benefit the composition. It just kind of creates a little bit of a stronger connection. Yeah, see that tone right there? It's a little bit close to that. Now you don't have to do that everywhere, but let's try it in a few areas, locations. So it's light blue, but it is darker than what the base layer kind of streaks that I have in here. Okay. I think that will do. All right. What do I stamp first? Do you go with the moose right here? And then this? Is this too small, maybe? Maybe we'll do just kind of a real kind of small bit of this right here. And then I'll do a larger one down here. Okay. All right. I want to get some of this kind of vellum technique kind of down pat before I kind of move on. So if I don't do something for a little while, I don't know, this is like the third week or something like that I've done something on vellum, but I don't think I did it for, I don't know, a while before that. I don't know if it's been a year, but I've been kind of having to try to remember certain types of whatever properties, and kind of expand on things too. Like I wouldn't have added in this paper before in the background, just, but I had this big open area right in there, and cutting out that mountain right there is really easy. Not a complicated cut. So adding that in there, I don't know, paper merging or whatever, was kind of nice. And then I was not quite sure how the vellum would contact this against this. I didn't want to have like this big kind of like air bubble in between this and that background. So this is like a new kind of addition in here. I think. I don't think I've done that before with vellum. Okay, I'm holding this down just because I want a really dark impression of it, or hopefully get a nice dark impression of it. Okay, that looks pretty good. like so. And then we'll do another one down here, or do I put it up here? Let's do this. I think I'm going to mask this off and we'll do this. This is going to be a little bit darker than this though, so maybe I can come like this with a couple more trees like that. I don't know if I'm going to have room for that moose. That moose is pretty big. Now, one thing I wouldn't do is I would never have like a foreground in here. I don't think that's going against this and that, because that blue paper right there is at a different level than this one. So I think if I tried to stamp this over the top of that, I think I would get this big space in between some sort of foreground element that would where it wouldn't stamp. So, okay. Let's see if I can get this right here, which I don't always do. But I'm going to mask that off. I want to have a little bit of it showing. We'll come over here like this. Maybe I undermasked, maybe I overmasked, I don't know. That right there wasn't merging in very well. That one's, I wanted it dark so it would represent something that's really close to us, and also it's on the top, but I think it's like drying like a little bit of like a dark gray. Right here where it's still wet, it still looks really you know, pretty close to 100% black. Okay, so this is the Brilliance pigment ink too. If anyone ever watches this, this is not like a VersaFine Clair. I don't think the VersaFine Clair is going to dry, at least on this type of vellum that I have. It's not non-porous, I don't think. But I'm just not quite sure if the VersaFine Clair, which is like, again, oil-based, if it's going to dry even with heat setting. You can give it a try, but the Brilliance ink specifically, it's a water-based one, and it's been designed to be used on tops of things like glossy cardstock, so you get a pretty decent, you know, amount of whatever drying. There's a drying, I think, element in there, unless it's just for the fact that it's water-based that it dries faster than oil-based. Okay, let's see here. All right, this is going to fit in here. I'm going to do it. But this little reflection area is going to be too dark, I think. So I'm going to wipe it off right down here. It's going to be too dark to just stamp right over the top of that, so I think I'll do a little bit of masking, but I'll also have that taper where it's a little bit darker, and then it's going drier down here, so it should go from dark to light down here. This is always one of those moments in a live stream, like that and like word stamps, where you just hope that, I don't know, you don't drop the stamp or something like that. I'd have to do some repair work, you know. What do they say in scenic stamping? You can always stamp like a, you know, a tree over the top of something. You can't really erase, but you can certainly bury something. All right, so that is that. I need to be careful in here because those are really wet. Okay. You can see on here, I don't know if you can see it, but see how moist that is right in there. Well, maybe it's because I didn't stamp it out there too, but not all of your ink is going to transfer when it comes to something like this type of pigment ink on top of this kind of less absorbent style of paper or surface. I don't know. Vellum's not really considered is vellum considered a paper? So, you know, you might get a lot of ink, residual ink on your stamp after you stamp it out. So that's why you kind of stamp and hold, kind of allow the ink to start drying and setting up a little bit before lifting. Because if you stamp right down and then you lift up, kind of in the, you know, the traditional impression time, you might be only getting, I don't know, just a fraction of the ink needed to create, you know, a dark enough impression. Test out, depends how wet your pad is and everything like that too, or the relative, you know, humidity of a certain area, especially if it involves the extremes, you know, you're stamping, you know, you're in the, whatever, a desert state in summertime, you know, it's going to be a lot different than someone stamping in, you know, a much cooler location during winter, whatever, you know, something. Okay, let's see. I don't want to put this right dead center, but this is my, here's our boat right there, fishing, going for giant halibut. Don't press down too hard on these really small images. First of all, you're using thicker ink, and you don't want to smash things where those little tiny details just get super smashed. So just light, even pressure when it comes to your smaller designs, like that. People, sometimes when we're using like large designs and we're using more pressure, whatever, per square inch or anything like that, you don't adjust the pressure, so when it gets down to like a little, you know, like birds or something like that, if we press the same with the same pressure that we use on, you know, something like this size with a huge amount more of a surface texture, you know, this thing is going to get really squashed down, so careful and stuff like that. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to heat set this. I would normally let this, if I'm just stamping non live stream, I'm letting this air dry for a little bit longer before I go back in and add anything over the top of it, like coloring. So, you know, we're in live stream, so I'll try to heat set it, and I'll try to add a little bit of color into these trees if I can. Okay. Okay, let's add in a little bit more foreground. Again, just be careful about, you know, touching anything that's like really wet at this point in time. So there's the benefit of that vellum there. That vellum is stamped, I mean, the rock is stamped in black, but the vellum is over the top of it, and you can get, if you have anything that you put over the top of that, it's really going to create some decent amount of space, even in your foreground area like that. I mean, that rock could have been stamped on the top of the vellum too, and it would be darker, you know. Or, I don't know, you can do all kinds of things. You can stamp a lighter one up here and a darker one down here, so the foreground goes from dark to light. And it creates this foreground depth, just as this one's like darker right here and lighter right in the background. You can do that same type of thing in the, right up here too. I mean, you could stamp, you know, you do things like use different colors of ink too, if you have like a gray brilliance or something like that. All right. Okay, swirl almost forgot right here. I'm going to put in some additional textures right in here. Tiny rocks, small. Okay, a little bit more surface texture. The more of that you put in there, it maybe represents something like low tide or something, where you can go get, I don't know, clams. All right, don't think about clams, Bonnie. Not for another week. Be careful when heat setting vellum pieces, because you don't want delamination to happen between the vellum and the background, surface. Okay, now that's not completely dry, but I just don't want to, I don't want to push it too much. I'm going to see if I can get a little bit of tone into these trees with some colored pencils, just applying really lightly. If I can't do it very well, I'll try to heat set a little bit more, but again, I just don't want to have that heat on this card too much. Okay, it's already starting to bow a little bit, so you just kind of counter bow like this a little bit. I find it's easier to kind of straighten it out when it's still a little bit warm. Now this is going to get mounted again too, so I don't really mind if it's like curling a little bit. I just don't want it like an extreme curl in it for it to dry that way. Because some things, if it's like really curled and it stays like that, when it's cool and then you flatten it out sometimes, you just kind of have to kind of watch that you don't get some like ripples in the vellum, okay? Because at that point in time, it's a little bit harder to kind of adhere, which you can kind of burnish it down sometimes still. But yeah, less kind of pressure, the better. Okay, it seems like this area is kind of reasonably dry. It's the ones that are thicker, like a more solid black tree that's a little bit wet. Oh, you know what happened, Bonnie? Other people might be watching my other video, the preliminary video that I just posted, like 15 minutes before I came on here. So it probably published like right at 4 o'clock. So I did this preliminary where I just stamped everything out and did all that vellum work. I figured I would just save the live stream for kind of the finishing work on this. Because I had to get up a couple times to go and add that spray adhesive to the piece, so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to have to keep getting up and I'll see in I'll be back in a minute type of thing on the live stream, like I do in other live streams, but it's always kind of weird. All right, so see this right in here? I'm kind of adding in some green tones into the piece. I want to keep some lighting in here as well. Okay, so see these trees right here? They're kind of matching those background trees a little bit. Or a little bit more, I guess. We'll get a little green tinge into these trees right here. I can kind of retain a little bit of that lighting in there, maybe. So, you know, you can use a dark green, like a, you know, real pale version of that hue. Okay, I'm being a little bit careful here where I place my finger because I think these reeds down here are a little bit wet. And what, okay, so when this completely dries too, I'm going to add in some more of that misty kind of diffusion, like right around in here at the base of the mousse right here. But again, I want to let it kind of just air dry a little bit more, just so I don't have to lay that heat on, you know, directly for too long in any one spot. My sister fried fish tonight. I ate one and some tater tots. I figured if I'm going to pay for, go ahead. Well, I hope that if you're digesting that, then you're probably in the clear. Any type of like fried foods. I think I fried a fish. When did I do that? I forgot what I made. I think it was tilapia or something like that. A whole fried fish. Which I usually don't do. I usually, you know, it's like grilled or something like that. Or if it's fried, then it's usually like little nuggets. But I tried this recipe for like the whole thing. I like those whole fried fish dishes at restaurants. Okay, adding in that same type of textural element as we have in the background there, which isn't quite so textural after I put... It's not like acrylic-y textural now because I put that... I applied the white pigment ink over the top of it, so everything's kind of like the soft texture. So this one will be a little bit more contrasted here in the foreground like that. All right, let me see if I can get this into the mix, that little trunk kind of addition. Okay, so see these right now? You can see the trunk right there and see how it goes up a little bit right here. Let me see if I can add this in without, I don't know, like smearing everything. And in the foreground, you can do these little branches coming off of it too. I like that. You see that? It kind of gives it that tree like a really good structure. Doesn't it look more three-dimensional just with that little bit in there? So any of the autumn types of images you can do this with too. Autumn bank, right, left, autumn brook. Okay, there we go right here. This one's kind of like a little bit darker. It was kind of mixing with some of that black, but maybe that's good. So it's not like too in your face, like white in there, because that's a really dark area. So, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So when you were saying that that fried fish, I was thinking it when I was mentioning this restaurant that I really liked. There was this Mexican restaurant that had this whole fried catfish. They called it bagre frito, fried catfish. I'm sure I'd like catfish nuggets and everything like that too, but I would get that dish all the time there. Bagre frito. Yeah, it was like a good sized, you know, fried catfish, whole catfish. I miss that dish. I don't think the restaurant is there anymore. It was in up in LA, Whittier area where I used to live. All right, let's see. All right, so just a little bit more kind of atmospherics in here. This area up top, this is going to get all matted and formatted in here, but a little bit more atmospherics in here with the white pigment ink. And then this spot up here is really perfect for like a quote right up here. So I'll mat this off a couple times and I'll throw a quote stamp in here as well. I like the this imagery right here in nice dark values like that, and it's really crisp against that softer background. Will really look good. It pushes the depth. Sometimes if I bring in a little bit of extra white pigment ink into these areas though, it might close the distance more between background and foreground, you know? So it's, but I tend to like the look of it a little bit more by having that kind of that little bit of misty light on these objects. So I'd put some right in here at the base of this boat a little bit. Maybe I'll leave this as is, but like, you know, like around the feet of the moose here too. So texturally, it'll tie everything together a little bit more. But again, it lessens the separation between it because everything down here is really crisp and dark, and everything back here is lighter and soft. So I don't know. You know, one of the things is too is you can just put a really small amount of it down and then see if you like it. And then, you know, if you want to go more, then you can go more, but you can do it really incrementally. But yeah, I don't know if I'm talking myself out of it now that I think about it too. Because that crispness in there, that really pushes the depth a lot. I don't know, like I said, I can put a little bit of it here though, like a hint of it, and maybe this will be my whole crisp area, just right here, with a little bit around the base of that moose. But yeah, the quote stamp up here for sure would be good. Let me see, I don't have any of my pre-cut moons anymore. You can do like a big moon rising or something like that. It's not supposed to be nighttime though, but you could do little things like that. But anyway, yeah, that's my little Father's Day thing. So Dad's out there on that, you know, that, I don't know if it's quite a party boat or something like that, going for those, you know, whatever those monsters of the deep, those 500-pound halibut or whatever they are. He's not quite doing a catch and release though, on something like that, you know. So anyway, yeah. So thanks for checking out the vid here. She likes perch, so she cooks some of both. Oh, that's great. We used to catch perch all the time. That's the thing. That's, I mean, there's like hundreds of types of perch. But when we used to go surf fishing, and that's what we would be. That's the only fish that we were basically catching as kids when we were doing surf fishing. But we'd typically catch our limit though, especially when we found this one beach, total seclusion too. But yeah, that's how we ate it. It was fried. It was fried perch. Not whole. We never did that. It was always fillets, but yeah. Never any catfish fishing though. It's always like salt water back in those days. And then we would go and catch rainbow trout up in the Sierras every summer. And that was always fried, just breaded and fried. So a lot of trout and perch eating. Then my dad started doing all kinds of other fishing later on with his friends. He would go out on boats and get a lot of rockfish, halibut. I think he got bonita sometimes a halibut, but those ones are a little bit more rare. And a lot of mackerel too. So, yeah. Fish is good for you. All right, anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out the live stream here. It was an intimate live stream today, Bonnie. I think it was a mistake publishing that other video like right before this one, because I have a feeling people thought that was the live stream. There's probably comments in the comment section right there, as opposed to the chat, like, "Hey, how's everyone doing?" or whatever. You know, thinking that one's the live stream. So I don't know. On that one, I should have put like pre-recorded or something like that. But yeah, fun with vellum. I don't know. This might be my last vellum piece for a while. I think I've kind of figured out the techniques and the different techniques as far as the way that I use them. Like I said, this one comes with a merge. I'm kind of curious. I think the vellum over the top of holographics. I don't know if we'd be able to see the holographic effect like at all. But now I'm thinking about it, and I was wondering, I wonder how we would do that. A merge with holographic. Could we have possibly the benefits of the holographic and all that shimmery type of look with the lighting, but then still be able to put stuff over the top of it with vellum? I don't know. Yeah, one-on-one there, Bonnie. We tricked them. I'll say thanks for checking out the video on this one. That's probably, since it's probably pre-recorded if anyone watches this now. All right, have a good rest of evening and weekend. And yeah, fun in Denali here. Good night.